Stunning. Here's Michael Bloomberg, who, as you know, is spent I don't know how many hundreds. He spent $100 million already. I mean, I don't know. He's spent so many dollars. This is pretty nuts. The Central Park Five. Is there anybody who hears the sound of my voice who doesn't know who I'm referring to? Is there anybody, let me put it this way. Is there anybody who lives in New York City above the age of 19 who couldn't know what I was referring to? Because it was huge news. When were these guys? It was in the 90s, right? Early 90s. Where 5 kids were basically coerced into a false confession that they had participated in a rape and beating of a woman in Central Park. That they were wilding, which is where like bands of brown colored kids would go around and just beat up people in the parks, which of course was not happening. Donald Trump took out a full page ad saying that they should get the death penalty. They were convicted. They were sent to jail. Over the years, people would talk about their innocence. Ken Burns and his daughter, I believe, did a documentary about them when they were ultimately exonerated through physical evidence, and I think actually the testimony from somebody who was actually involved in the crime. In fact, I think I interviewed Ken Burns about it on this program early on. I can't remember when. And then they, for years, during the Bloomberg administration, the city of New York stonewalled instead of paying them reparations for the years that they were in prison during their late teens and early 20s into their 30s. And then when de Blasio got in office, the city paid some restitution. The idea that anybody who lives in New York was not aware of any of that story, you'd have to be really, really oblivious. You'd have to be super oblivious. You'd have to have like an agenda of I don't care about anybody or any issues that impact criminal justice or just justice in general, or race, or whatnot. Well, imagine if you were the mayor who was in charge of keeping the city from stonewalling that, and you didn't know what ultimately happened with that case. You'd be Michael Bloomberg.
We started talking about race, and a subject that's come up a lot is the Central Park Five. And when you were mayor of New York, you defended the city and the police department's handling of this Central Park Five case. You argued that they both acted in good faith. Do you still believe that today? And do you think that
I really have no idea. I've read in the paper. I've been away from government for a long time. So apparently the courts have ruled that they did not commit a crime, and that's the final word, and we just have to accept that. But it isn't a question of what anybody believes.
At the time, you did not believe that, and so I'm saying have you changed your stance on that?
I think there was an awful lot of evidence presented at that time that they were involved. There's been questions since then about the quality of that evidence, and so I've been away from it for so long, I just really can't respond because I just don't remember. But there's been plenty written about it, and I'd suggest you go and read some of that. Next question.
Right. Well, I mean, here's a guy they think that it's so irrelevant that they didn't even need an answer for that. And, the simple answer is, Clearly there was something wrong because 5 innocent people went to jail for a crime they did not commit. That's a slam dunk. Does that mean that the cops behaved criminally? Well, the courts have decided on that. You could say that. But to say that, do I think that something went wrong? Yes, of course it did. It's stunning. Really stunning. But that's Mike Bloomberg. It's going to be really fun when that dude decides whether or not he is going to run against Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren if they are the nominee. That's going to be really fun. Hey, speak.